They say trust is earned, not given, but sometimes it's tested when no one's supposed to be watching. I was never supposed to be more than a background figure. My job was to clean, not to be seen. And honestly, I was fine with that. After everything I'd lost, invisibility felt safe. It was almost midnight, and I was walking my usual janitorial route through the glass and chrome tower of Everdyne Capital, 43 floors of polished pride and power. My son Caleb was with me like always. 8 years old, freckles, big heart, orange gloves, too big for his hands. Said they made him feel like a superhero. "Start with the doorknobs, bud," I told him, unlocking the executive floor. "I'll handle the floors." That's when I noticed the office. The door was cracked open, the light spilling out soft and deliberate like it was meant to catch your eye. And right there in plain sight was an open safe, not just ajar, wide open. Stacks of money, neat, crisp like bait. "Dad," Caleb whispered, his eyes wide, "there's money in there." I didn't answer. I froze for a second because I knew this wasn't an accident. Nothing on the 43rd floor ever was. I went to grab him, but before I could say a word, he stepped inside, crouched down, and started sorting the bills. Not taking them, sorting them. "These are all messy," he mumbled. "Mom said money should always be tidy, even if it's not yours." That's when she moved. A silk scarf slipped off her eyes like a curtain rising on a play. Evelyn Brandt, the CEO herself, had been pretending to sleep in that leather chair the whole time, watching, testing. "I left it open," she said, standing slowly. "I needed to know if anyone would fail." I straightened up, jaw tight, unsure if I was about to be fired or framed. But she didn't look at me. She looked at Caleb kneeling there with stacks of money, his gloves dusty from the corners of the vault. And instead of stealing, "You cleaned," she whispered. Caleb blinked. It was messy. She turned to me, her voice suddenly softer. "Otis, is that really all you are?" "A janitor." I didn't flinch. That's the job I do, not who I am. She stared at me like I'd just told her gravity was optional. Then she nodded once like something finally made sense. And that should have been it. But the thing about exposing the truth is truth exposes back. Word got around. Not just about the safe, about me. About Caleb. Some folks started calling it inspiring. Others called it dangerous. Especially one man. Travis Horn, CFO partner since the early days. White teeth, white collar, white intentions. Until they weren't. He didn't like that Evelyn started asking for my opinion in meetings. Didn't like that she gave me a new title, Director of Culture and Ethics. Didn't like that a man with no MBA and a mop was suddenly in rooms where power liked to keep its shoes on. First came the HR memos, policy updates, quiet ones. Like no after-hours visitors, no children on site. They never said my name, but everyone knew. Then one night my cart was moved. The drawer was left open. Inside, a velvet pouch, jewelry, diamond bracelet, $8,000 easy. I didn't touch it. I took pictures, called security, said, "We might have a misfiled item." 10 minutes later, Evelyn showed up. The footage was grainy, but not grainy enough. There was Travis pausing, planting, walking away like nothing happened. She played the footage in front of the whole board. No warning, no preamble, just hit play. When it ended, Travis laughed, short fake. "This is ridiculous," he said. "You're crucifying a partner to protect a janitor." Evelyn stepped forward, her voice calm, cutting. "No, I'm removing a man who mistook cruelty for leadership. He stood fists tight. I gave 15 years to this company, and she pointed at me, gave it back its soul. That was the day I stopped being invisible." But here's the thing. Not everyone clapped. Not everyone celebrated. Because when you elevate someone, the world's conditioned to overlook it doesn't feel like justice. It feels like a threat. and threats. They trigger survival instincts in people who think their status is owed. Weeks later, Caleb spilled coffee on one of Evelyn's whiteboard's charts projections. Everything soaked. I told him it was okay, just paper and glass. But he cried, wrote her a note that said, "Sorry I spilled your important things. I hope it still helps your company." She read it aloud at the next all-hands meeting, and the silence that followed, louder than any standing ovation. That was the moment things really changed. Not in spreadsheets, in spirit. Departments started checking in on one another not for reports, but for people. Interns got mentorships. Custodians got names remembered. Executives learned that leadership wasn't volume, it was presence. But not everyone was ready for that world. One afternoon, Travis cornered Caleb in the break room. "Doesn't your father know this isn't a daycare?" he sneered. Caleb, bless him, didn't blink. "My dad says you don't have to fit in when you stand for something." That's when I stepped in, looked Travis square in the eye and said, "If you've got concerns, speak to me, not my son." He leaned close, voice sharp. "You forgot your place, Walker." I smiled. "No, sir. I remember exactly where I am. You just don't like that I'm still standing." A week later, Evelyn offered me the job full-time. A department, a budget, a seat at the table, and I almost said no. Not because I was afraid to lead, but because I was afraid to be seen. I'd spent so long cleaning up other people's messes, did I know how to build anything of my own? But Caleb, he looked at me one night while we were walking home. Stars above us, sidewalk under our feet. He said, "Dad, I think when you mop the floor, it holds everybody up." And that's when I knew. I didn't need a title to lead. I just needed to live the kind of truth my son could believe in. Today, the company has a new motto. Character isn't a department, it's the foundation. And every Friday during our Legacy Day, employees' kids come in, ask questions, learn names. Caleb leads the tour. He tells them about values, kindness, why he always says thank you, even to vending machines. Last week he stood at the front of the atrium, a paper crown on his head, and said, "Legacy means making people feel safe, even if they don't know it's you." And no one said a word, they just listened. Because sometimes the loudest thing in the room is a quiet kid telling the truth. So now I ask you, have you ever been overlooked? Have you ever seen someone take the blame just because of where they stood or what they looked like? Drop your story in the comments. Let's shine a light on the ones who never asked to be seen but showed up anyway. Because maybe the floor they're standing on is the only thing keeping it all together.